Well, good morning and welcome to Weston Pools. I'm actually here fishing a match today, but I thought while I'm here, it'd be a good opportunity to run you through a little bit of success out at the venue recently. I actually managed to win the John Oliver Memorial Spring Festival, the one that was sponsored by Tackle Guru. So over the moon, absolutely love the festivals here at Weston Pools. So I was made up to manage to win one, and I actually managed to win it with 2 match wins as well. So had 2 fantastic days fishing, drew 2 lovely pegs. You've got to draw the good pegs to win the festivals, that's just how it is. So I was really chuffed to get a chance. And I thought I'll give you a little bit more of a detailed run through of each day. And then I've got a couple of rigs here that I can talk you through that I think sort of played the biggest role in the wins, if you like. So the festival was spread across Belvedere, Stretton, Canal and the Clay Pit. 61 anglers fishing, so plenty of anglers on, so a brilliant festival. They're always good here at Weston Pools. There's some great money to be won as well with super pools and money overall on the day, so it's a brilliant festival. Tackle Guru put some prizes up as well, which was nice. And yeah, so absolutely buzzing to go into day one. And at the draw, went in, well, I actually thought I'm going to try last peg this time. So me and Tom actually helped run the festivals here at Weston Pools. So I was holding the bag and I actually had the last peg in the bag, which happened to be peg 4 on Stretton. Now, this peg's like in the sort of narrow bit. What I'll do is I'll show you a video now so then you can see the peg and then I'll come back to you. So you've seen the peg now, and as you'll see, it's like quite narrow across. It's the narrowest area of the lake. It's probably about 17, 18 metres to the far bank. And with a long kit, with a long line, you can just about flick a rig across to the far bank. So yeah, it's the narrowest bit of the lake, and it was peg 2, peg 4, and then 6. So I had a spare peg either side, so that definitely made me fancy it even more, because sometimes in the festivals they actually peg it 2 together, miss one along there, and it still fishes well. So I really fancied it, and I thought I've got the option to catch carp across, hopefully, then I've got the option to catch fish shallow down the middle. And I just had a feeling that it would be worth starting across. Now, I know on Canal, on that narrow side of the canal where the carp live, 16 to 20, that's always a good way to start, flicking a rig across to the far bank, because a lot of them carp just mill around on the far side, swimming up and down, and they just live there. You don't have to feed anything. So I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I remember Christian or some of the lads saying in the Winter League they catch dobbing across on that section of the Stretton where I was. So I thought I'll just give it a try. I just fancied that as a start. I didn't fancy short with pellets, really. I thought I might get 1 or 2, but I didn't think it'd give me a brilliant start. And all I wanted to do was feed my maggot shallow line for 15-20 minutes before I dropped on it. I didn't really think anything else was going to be good enough other than shallow and maybe like tapping pellets across or something, but I thought I'll just start flicking a rig and see how it goes. And to be honest, it was phenomenal. I shipped out at the start of the match. It's a full 16 metres with a long kit, long 4, and like a dolly butt at the end of my 16, which makes the Guru poles like a true 16. So it's a long old way with a long kit with a full length of line. So this is the actual rig that I used. And I flicked my rig in, and straight away float settled up, and I had a carp on £10. First chuck, I thought fantastic. Could be a fluke, but even if it's one bite, it's a great start. I expected sort of 70 to 100 pound to win the section. So I thought, well, if I can catch 2 or 3 big carp and then hopefully get a good run shallow and maybe a few fish in the edge, it'll be a good way of sort of giving myself a chance to win the section. Anyway, shipped back out, and there we go, another carp, £6. I thought, this is a crazy start. And to be honest, I think in the first half an hour I had 40 odd pound. And then after an hour, I probably had 60 or 70. And then after like 2 hours, I probably got to nearly £100 by flicking the rig across. And that's an absolutely crazy start. I think second in my section on the day actually was £97. So after 2 hours, I'd caught enough to win the section, which is balmy really. But you know your luck's in when you go over and ship and flick a rig in and catch some carp. But they just live there. And after 2 hours, they just pushed along, and then the lad in peg 6 ended up catching some on a little flick rig as well. But I didn't really spend too much time in the second half of the match. I just focused on catching what I could down shallow and on the short pole. So what I'll do, I'll quickly talk you through this. What I did was I actually set it up on red hydro in a long kit. I thought them carp in Stretton pull like mad. So I made sure that I had the gear on to land them. If I hooked one, I was going to get it in. So I went for red hydro in a long kit, which is one of my favourite, all-time favourite carp elastics. And I've got 022 mainline, which is really strong. All my carp floats tied on 022 this time of year. I don't want to get broke. I don't see a problem with fishing heavy lines. I don't think they see it. I'd just rather have it nice and durable and you're not worried about getting broke. For any of my floats that I feel like I might be using for edge fishing for carp, I'll always put them on 022 end gauge. And then this is the actual float that I used. I'll show you it in a bit closer. It's a 0.4 Guru bagger float, which is like a little muddy style float. And it's sort of little dumpy float. It's got a glass stem. Sit back down. It's got a glass stem, which makes it really strong and durable, and it means it's not going to break as easy. When you're fishing big heavy lines, heavy elastics, you want something nice and strong. This is actually the second rig that I set up on the day, because I ended up getting stuck in a bush. Because when you're flicking that rig in the wind, you do run the risk of like swinging it into a bush. So I did have an orange tip on, which is always better for me for seeing, but I didn't have any other orange ones set up. I just had a few yellow ones because I was a bit unprepared. So I stuck this one on. I could still see it absolutely grand, to be honest. But yeah, I've just got 4 number 8s underneath that, and I figured with the 6mm pellet, and because it's quite a distance, that meant there was plenty bristle showing. If I was fishing it down the edge, I'd probably have another number 8 on there, or number 10, I'm not sure what it takes. But I just went for a little bit less short. That still gave me enough sort of power to swing the rig out in front of me, but enough so I could plenty bristle showing, so I'm not striking at line bite. So all I was doing was shipping out, getting to sort of the end of my section with my rig back here, then using the momentum to sort of drop it in. And early doors in the session, I wasn't even needing to flick it more than 2 or 3 times before I got one. And then it got a bit more tough as the day went on. But I'd caught that much, wasn't too much of a worry. So yeah, all the shot under the float, and I had it set at about, that was a bit deeper, but I caught most of my fish early in the session about 14-inch deep, with all the shot under the float, like I said, around about that deep. I just think that's a nice depth for them carp. I just thought I'd just try it, to be honest, and I caught all my fish at that depth. I thought I'll start at 14-inch, so I'm a little bit deeper, and then just in case, I feel like if I started at 12-inch, I might miss out on some fish. So, but if I was like far looking an odd one, I would have just pulled it down. But because I had such a great start, I just stuck with 14 inches, 15 inches. And then all I've got is a 5-inch hook length, loop to loop, of 019. Is that 019? Yeah, 019 and a 16s Super MWG from Tackle Guru. Really, really strong hooks. If you're using this sort of tackle with red hydro, you need to be fishing 019 minimum as a hook length, and you need to be fishing Super MWG, so you're not going to get straightened. So like I said, nice heavy tackle. Make sure you get all them big carp in. And yeah, I had a phenomenal start to the match. Flicking that rig across, probably like 100 pound in the first 2 hours of the match, which is crackers fishing really. I went across at the start, flicked my rig in, had a 10 pounder straight away. And I actually used a white 6mm pellet from Messingham. They're a fishery feed pellet, use them for the hook. They're a brilliant low oil pellet, and I think they just stand out to the fish. They're a brilliant hook bait. So if anyone's going to Messingham, grab me a bag and give it to me next time you see me, because they're worth the weight in gold, them pellets, I think. So that was the rig. Basically, as the day went on, I started on it, probably had 40 pound after half an hour, which is a cracking start. Had a 10 pounder, then a 6 pounder, then another 6 pounder, and I thought, this is crazy fishing. Basically fished like that for the first 2 hours of the match, got to about 100 pound, and they sort of drifted down to the next angler. But the key was to sort of use the momentum of this flick rig, sort of swing the rig out and plop it in the sort of right place. Before the wind got up, it was so easy to do because it was flat calm, and I could just use the weight of the float to flick out in front of me and then land it with a little plop. So the float and the pellet landed nice and separate on the water, and them carp were just nailing it straight away. Everyone was hooked right in the top lip or down its throat. They absolutely nailed the pellet, and I didn't lose a single fish. Every one I got in. This red hydro was key to that, I think. If I fished a lighter elastic, a lot of them would have come off. I didn't hook any F1s really, and trust me, they pulled plenty of this out. It isn't as crazy as you think. It just allows you to steer them carp away from the snags on that far bank. So on to the rest of that day really. I I'd been feeding my maggot shallow line at like 11 metres, and there was eyed swirling on there the whole time, but I couldn't come off this swing rig when I was catching carp. But once my sort of swing rig started to die, I'd drop shallow, catch some eyed, and the eyed were a bit smaller, to be honest, which was a bit frustrating, but they were still worth catching. There were still probably 8 ounce fish, 8 to 10 ounce. Not many of the big pounders that you catch in canal, but they were worth putting in the net because you get an odd F1 in between and an odd better eyed. So I basically shipped them back for the rest of the day with an odd look in the edge towards the latter hour of the match. And I'd big potted ground there really aggressively. But that was a bit of a mistake. I probably should have just threw maggots there and been a bit more delicate with the fishing. Not went for it too much, but I thought with the carp being across on the far bank, I thought it'd give me a good chance to catch them in the edge if I was just aggressive with ground bait. Kept putting sort of 250 mil ground bait on there. With like 2 hours to go, every 15, 20 minutes, I put 250 mil ground bait on there with an odd dead maggot in the hope that you might get a little arrival of carp the last hour. Didn't actually happen in the end. I don't think there was as many carp coming in down the edge on that lake, in that area of the lake. I think a lot of them were just sat on the far bank, but it didn't matter. Luckily in the last hour, I actually caught a great run of F1s shallow on maggots. Eventually the eyed sort of cleared off completely, and you know that's when the F1s are in your peg. And every now and again you'd get a bite, but it'd be a cracking F1, sort of £1.5 to £2.5 pound. And this was the rig that I actually caught best on. But I'm going to talk you through that when I talk about day 2. And yeah, so that was the pretty much what brought me to the end. I did chuck some maggots on a long kit and a short fall right in front of my nets to try and catch some fish on the bottom, but it didn't really come good. I caught a few skimmers and a few sort of stockies, but it wasn't fantastic. But it allowed me to rest shallow every now and again because my edge was pretty rubbish. So I could drop short, catch a little stocky or a skimmer, feed shallow for another 5-10 minutes, drop on it and catch a little run of F1s in the last hour with the odd eyed mixed in. And yeah, that left me with £174 come the weigh-in, which is enough to get the section win for day 1, which was brilliant. And obviously it was enough to win the match. So brilliant start to the festival with a big weight, and that weight actually won me the biggest weight at the festival. I had to wait and see what happened on day 2, obviously at the time, but no one managed to catch that kind of weight. It's a big weight for Weston in the spring, that 170 odd pound. I think you need to catch them carp. So unless someone drew a similar peg on day 2, I didn't think anyone was going to be able to catch that weight. So I was really pleased to win the biggest weight. I think there was about a few £100 in the pot for that, which was really nice. So that was day 1, section win. Next we'll go and talk about day 2. So on to day 2 now of the festival, and going into day 2, really confident with a section win and 1 point. And I thought I'm going to have to go with the same technique in the draw bag. However, Wayne Rook was not having it. He wanted to go in after me, so I thought, okay. So there's 4 pegs left because 2 people didn't turn up actually, which was a bit frustrating. But these things happen. He went in the bag, he pulled out 13 on Stretton, and I thought, that's quite a good peg. And I went in and pulled out 46 Canal. So I thought, that's a brilliant peg. And I actually managed to avoid peg 6 on Canal, which is pretty average, I'd say, and peg 29 on the pit, which for anyone who knows the pit, it's probably my least favourite peg on that lake. All the other pegs are fantastic, but peg 29 in the pit, you're in a bit of a bay, so I was very pleased to avoid that one. So 46 Canal, I'll show you it now. Basically, it's about 16 metres wide there. You've got a reed bed across, and it's like 5 foot deep against it, so it's great for catching shallow, especially in the warmer months. So that's always gives you that option on 46 Canal. And you've also got some nice edges to your left and to your right, and plenty of open water in front of you. You've got loads of space on that peg. You've got an angler on 48, which is 2 pegs to your right, and then no one to your left really. So it's a great little draw. I just feel like it gives you a chance of winning the section there all day long. So my plan of attack was start in the right edge. So I started kinder potting a medium pot of micro pellets at like a long kit, short 4 and a 5, down my right hand edge, but that far out from the bank, just so I was away from all the roots and horrible stuff. And I had a nice little start, to be honest, while I was loose feeding some maggots at 11 metres. I had maybe 5-6 stockies on micro pellets, and it was quite good. Probably caught 5 or 6 pounds in the first 15-20 minutes. For reasonable start. And I just wanted to prime shallow for 15 minutes before I went on it, because I knew I wanted to clap them eyed when I went on that line. And the thing is on there, my plan was to fish down the middle to start with shallow, with maggots, try and clatter the eyed. And then I brought a couple of pints of casters. I brought 3 pints of casters with me. And I thought last sort of 2.5 hours of the match, I'll loose feed them across to the far bank in the hope of catching some F1s shallow a bit longer. So I thought I didn't know how confident they would be at like 11 metres on them maggots. That was actually a mistake in the end, but we'll get on to that. I basically dropped in shallow and had a brilliant run of Iden with an odd F1 mixed in as well, which I probably should have clocked onto. But the best rig, and it's been the best rig at the moment for me on a lot of places, same at Tunnel Barn Farm, this 3B8 sort of Winter Maggie's rig from RW. It's got a tiny little sensitive 1.2mm bristle, and I actually tie the eyes in on these ones, which I'd recommend doing. And it takes barely any shot. I've literally got 2 number 10s, one under the float and one under the hook length. Little 3-inch hook length, nice, so your shot's nice and close to your hook, and a 16 Super LWG. And I think a nice strong hook is really good for hide because I think it just holds in the mouth a bit better. I think if you use an F1 pellet, something a bit finer, they'll just rip out a bit easier. So stick to your Super LWGs for your hide. I think it makes a big difference. And then a nice soft elastic. This is a green Preston, the 10 I think, but you could use pink or blue hydro, it would be quite nice. And then yeah, I've got 017 mainline because I'm only ever going to be matching this up with 013, so that's why I went for that. Nice shortish lash. I fished this around about 14 inches, so I've still got a nice 8-inch line, so that's long enough. And I also had another rig set up with a bit of a longer line, so I could fish it up to like 2 foot deep. And I basically just rotated them 2 rigs. The dibber rig was terrible, and normally the dibber's the best rig on there, but I think because they had a clatter in the day before, it wasn't great. So I basically caught them hide for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they just disappeared, and I thought, oh, that's not good. So I tried priming it across with casters, dropped in the right edge, had a few, and went across on casters and tried to make it work. And I don't know if you've seen on the live feeds from the day, but I had a bit of a lull mid-match, and I just couldn't make anything happen. And I was priming my short line and my edge line with maggots, and I knew I needed to drop in the edge and start catching. So I come off my shallow line across with casters, stopped feeding that, just thought that's not going to work today. Dropped in down the left edge and I had a brilliant run of F1s on maggots, just throwing maggots at I fished a short kit, a short fawn, half a down my number 5, and I had a fantastic run just throwing maggots down there. And then in the last half hour, I dropped in on my maggot line in front of me, ended up catching some big F1s really well, and a big carp 10-pound last chuck. So I ended up binning all my shallow lines off, just focusing on my 2 close lines because I was getting that many bites. I felt confident in the last hour that's going to be enough. And I did kinder pot a few maggots down my left edge as well, like put a pot on just to tighten things up with like 10, 20 maggots in it at times. But usually I'd hook one, throw some in, and then land it, go back in over the top, chuck sort of 20 maggots over the top and get one. So a brilliant, lovely day's fishing. I think I ended up with £145, enough to win the section. So that gave me 2 wins and I actually won the match again the day too. So fantastic 2 days fishing. So that left me with 2 points and I think £300, about 300 odd. And that was actually enough to win the festival. So woo, over the moon with that. I love doing well at these festivals at Weston because it's a great bunch of lads and I just love this venue. So a massive well done to Kieran Marsden coming second and the rest of the lads who managed to frame up. But hopefully you found that video interesting. I'll sign off there because I've got to go and actually draw for my match today. But hopefully you found that video of use, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next catch up.